At the Accra International Conference Center, as substructures at the base of the facility develop deep cracks.
And the African Union has started an ambitious initiative to increase testing for coronavirus across the continent to 10 million. Welcome to the studios of GBC News and GTV. It's time for some news. I'm Akushika Akwe.
And I am Ni Odate Lamte.
Jonathan Intimdakon will translate the news in sign language. You can watch our bulletin live on our Facebook page or at www.gbcghanaonline.com or on our DSTV channel 278. A 7-member panel of the Supreme Court, presided over by the Chief Justice, Justice Enin Yeboah, has ordered the Electoral Commission to file by Monday, June 8, 2020, further legal basis why the current voters' identification card cannot be used to compile the new register.
The Supreme Court's order was in relation to a suit brought against the Attorney General and the EC by the National Democratic Congress (NDC) over the compilation of a new voters' roll. The case had been adjourned to the 11th of June 2020.
The National Democratic Congress has sued the Electoral Commission over its decision to compile a new voters' register. The party is, among other things, seeking a declaration that upon a true and proper interpretation of Article 45A of the 1992 Constitution, second defendant, which is the EC, has the constitutional power to and can compile a register of voters only once and thereafter revise it periodically as may be determined by law. Accordingly, the EC can only revise the existing register of voters and lacks the power to prepare a fresh register of voters for the December 2020 presidential and parliamentary elections.
The Minister for Tourism and Creative Arts, Mrs. Barbara Otin-Jesse, says government has earmarked $9 million to boost businesses in the tourism industry, which have been heavily impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic.
Mrs. Otin-Jesse said this at a briefing in Accra to outline details of easing restrictions for the tourism and hospitality industry.
Increased number of travelers to Ghana positively impacted the private sector industries such as the airlines, hotels, tour operators, restaurants, arts and craft dealers, amongst others. In view of the devastating effects of the COVID-19 on the sector, government has introduced interventions to ameliorate the impact on businesses, and the tourism and hospitality sector is also going to benefit from these interventions. For instance, the stimulus package of 600 million Ghana cedis through the NBSSI to stimulate economic activity of businesses in the SME sector, as well as the 3 billion facility for larger businesses, will also benefit the operators in the tourism and hospitality sector. Also, the ministry, under the Ghana Tourism Development Projects, which is a World Bank funded project, an amount of $9 million has been earmarked for interventions to boost the tourism industry. And this will be disbursed $4 million to support tourism sites and destinations development and $5 million for tourism enterprise support for SMEs within the tourism value chain.
The NPP has endorsed President Akufo-Addo as its presidential candidate for the 2020 general election. A statement issued and signed by the General Secretary, Mr. John Buedu, says the party has resolved to acclaim the sole candidate who filed his nomination to contest in the presidential primaries, that is Nana Akufo-Addo, as its 2020 presidential candidate. According to the statement, a date for the acclamation of the presidential candidate and his running mate will soon be communicated to the public.
Equally, the party will soon issue guidelines for the conduct of the parliamentary primaries. Meanwhile, the party has set June 20, 2020 to conduct the parliamentary primaries in the 168 constituencies where the party has certain MPs to elect candidates for the 2020 general election. A statement said these critical decisions were taken by the party at a National Executive Committee (NEC) and National Council meetings jointly held last night in Accra. President Akufo-Addo filed his nomination to contest the NPP presidential elections on February 20, 2020. The president has also maintained Dr. Mamadou Bawumia as his running mate for the 2020 general elections.
Also in this bulletin, former President Rawlings says it behoves on all as a nation to uphold the tenets of democracy and transparency in order not to disrupt the nation's current track. He was speaking at the commemoration of the 41st anniversary of the June 4th uprising.
The uprising on June 4, 1979 arose out of a combination of corruption, bad governance, frustration among the general public, and lack of discipline and frustrations within the ranks of Ghana's army.
On June 4, 1979, members of the military, drawn mostly from the junior ranks and inspired by mass social and public discontent, took over the country's governance after it had sunk into a state of social, economic and political decay. The 3 months that followed were used as a house cleaning exercise, after which elections were held and the mantle of political leadership handed over to the government of the People's National Party, ushering in the Third Republic. That event was 41 years ago, and at a deba today to commemorate it, the chairman of the planning committee, Dr. Benjamin Kumbo, said the current trends of the times informed the choice of the theme, strengthening the spirit of patriotism, resilience and integrity in difficult times.
Indeed, if the ideals of June 4th are being kept, observed and respected, certainly Ghana would be able to overcome the challenges with the pandemic. A lot of discipline is required to deal with the pandemic. A lot of accountability and probity is required to deal with the pandemic, just as integrity and resilience is important.
There were messages from groups within the NDC party and other stalwarts of the party.
We, the minority in parliament, will do our best to continue to fight for the rule of law. We will continue to demand accountability from the government. We will also continue to fight for the ordinary people on our streets. The minority in parliament is totally against the compilation of a new voters register during this difficult time.
We must speak up and do something about the disease that is affecting the democracy. That is the only way we can save this democracy. Some courageous people are speaking. And again, the powers that be thinking that those who are advising are the problem. They've started using the same intimidation and the methods they applied earlier on, which did not stop June 4th. Are we not learning lessons from our history?
Former President Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings called on all to respect the sanctity of the right of choice and justice, and that, he says, must be respected at all times.
The Electoral Commission, which is the fulcrum of our multi-party democracy, must be supported and protected by all stakeholders to ensure a free and fair election and a peaceful society. That notwithstanding, it is equally important for that revered institution to ensure that the processes leading to this year's elections are done in consultation with the stakeholders of the nation to prevent unnecessary suspicion and promote a peaceful and cohesive society. An election is an event, but building a democratic, free and peaceful society is a process. So the debate surrounding the new voters register must be thoroughly examined so we do not undermine the successes we have chalked so far as a nation.
In compliance with the social distancing protocol, a select few were at the event, which was broadcast live on social media.
Agri-House Foundation is working jointly with the Ministry of Food and Agriculture to introduce a new initiative christened One House, One Garden.
The idea is to assist homes to have excess food stock, be self-reliant, and to avoid the recent panic buying that led to some food shortages countrywide on the eve of the partial lockdown in Accra and Kumasi.
Buying food from the market is the norm, and there is nothing wrong with it. However, if you really want the freshest food, nothing beats locally grown. That is, right from your backyard garden. The farmer's market is a great choice, but there are also benefits in growing your own. This is what informed Agri-House Foundation to partner with the Ministry of Food and Agriculture to introduce the One House, One Garden initiative. The partial lockdown of Accra and Kumasi brought to the fore the need for households to have enough food in stock to avoid going hungry and ensure food security in a pandemic situation. One House, One Garden therefore aims at providing households with a simple and easily accessible source of augmenting their daily food needs. Close to 700 homes have been registered for the first phase of the project. They will be supported with free seedlings of different plants, garden tools, and a training manual, 1 square meter of wooden structure or tiles to plant on, treated soil, and training on how to go about the project. About 20 people who enrolled for training have received some tutelage in Accra to begin the project in their respective houses. The Chief Executive of Agri-House Foundation, Madam Alberta Akosa, said One House, One Garden is crucial in achieving food security.
The whole idea is to support, for instance, you to set up a backyard garden and also support you with some of the tools and input that you will need for your backyard garden. So we try to support with seedlings, because if you give seeds to people, they're not able to nurse them well. So that's support with seedlings, support with some organic manure, and then training.
The Chief Executive of Agri-House Foundation said they will engage agronomists and agribusiness students, about 20 of them, from agric colleges and universities across the country to help out in the project.
Authorities of the University of Ghana say the university's intended online end-of-semester examinations scheduled for between June and July will be conducted as earlier communicated. The university's ongoing online teaching and learning program for the second semester of 2019-2020 academic year will progress as planned. Management of the university said in a statement that examinations for all students, including final year students, scheduled to commence from June 8 to 2020 to July 3, 2020, will proceed as originally planned. However, the university says provisions are being made to receive registered final year students who still want to use the university's facilities and resources to prepare for the examinations.
Arrangements, according to authorities,